All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. We've given several minutes for people to join. I see great attendance, which is exciting. So this is a presentation. It was originally posted as a blog post that was very popular on michaelforce.org, but it occurred to me that there's a lot of people who do not read my blog. Probably a lot more out there do not read my blog than do. So once I got over that realization, that blow to my ego, I realized, well, hey, let's get this content out there. And this presentation is brought to you by RingLead. And let me go ahead and switch over to, there we go. So this is something about, sorry about that. There we go, full screen. So our cool sponsor, RingLead. So I actually work for RingLead, and I'm very lucky to. I'm the Chief Product Officer of RingLead. And I've never seen it on a list of one of those companies that's, the greatest companies to work for, but, I think it really should be because I basically spend all my time with the Salesforce community and mingling with the Salesforce community and working on designing on and playing around with App Exchange apps. So I really do what I love. And on top of that, they let me do things like this, actually spending company time giving presentations that have nothing to do with RingLead products, and are really just fun for me to promote my own blog, michaelforce.org, and just get this cool content out there. So my hat's off to my colleagues at RingLead for letting me do this. I put up a slide here. I think most of you probably do know, but RingLead applications remove and prevent duplicate leads, contacts, and accounts in Salesforce. First Salesforce certified partner, dating back to 2005. Cloud-based, and it's simple to use. So again, a shout out to the RingLead crew for letting me do this. Okay, so this is all about 5 admin tricks you didn't know about. And so you may know some of them. I'm sure some of the more savvy admins are going to know 1 or 2 of them, but I think everyone on the call is going to learn at least one thing. And since I posted, like I said, this was originally a blog post. But since then, there's been an update to one of the tips, and I've got a couple of extra little tidbits at the end, or actually a couple of links that are helpful links that I think are really cool that not enough people know about. So, all right, let's get right into it. So we have the auto number switcheroo. So this one is basically coming from a myth, right? So the myth is that auto number fields only ever contain the numbers which the field has generated on its own. And so the truth of the matter is that you can really put whatever you want in there. So, an auto number field is typically, you could put in there like maybe some combination of letters and numbers, so it's, my record 0001, 0002, 0003. Every time a new record gets created, it just increments the number, and yeah, I'm sure most of you have used these types of fields in your Salesforce orgs. So basically, the trick here to putting whatever kind of information you want in there is to change the field type. So you can actually change it to text, for example, and then you basically go in there and you can use anything you want, like any sort of data loaders, or even go in there and manually just edit some records, and then you can go and change it back to an auto number. And so that's the whole trick. And I guess to help exemplify it, there we go, a little illustration here, is that you can change the field type to text, right? And let's say that you have 4 records in there, and your field is, oh, that's annoying. Sorry for the interruption. I actually, this was kind of a bummer, but I'm kind of bummed out about this. I'm working on a backup machine right now, so I apologize for any sort of glitches in our presentation here. But I'm working on a backup machine because my original machine crashed, so I'm going to have to deal with that later on today. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. So we have in our my field, you can see here on the left, we've got 4 records, let's say, and in my auto number field, it's incrementing 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I can go in there and change it to a text field, and then I can go and mass update some records. So I can say, I can put it to whatever I want. It doesn't even have to be the same format. I could say, Mike was here in one of the records. And then down here, something that's a little more practical is, I can change the numbers. So maybe, instead of 7 and 8, I want to change it to 56 and 57. An example of that might be, maybe you're importing data from another system that already has some kind of like identifying number on it, and you don't want to create a new field for that. You want to use the same field. You can figure out ways to just put your data in there and leverage that same field. And just for the migration, you change it to a text field so that you can populate those. And then at the end, so here's the key to this one trick, is that you're actually going to have to make sure, like take into consideration, right, like what the information that you put in there, when you're actually changing it back to an auto number, it's going to ask you what number you want to start at again. So in this case, if I actually did start at 56, 57, and I wanted to start counting up from there, when I change it back to an auto number, then I'm going to want to tell it that, okay, I want to start it at 58. And that way the very next record will be 58, and then it'll just keep counting from 58 onward. Obviously another trick to this, or another caveat, is that this switch you want to make as quickly as possible, because if you go in there and you change it to a text field, and then one of your users goes in and creates a record, that record's not going to get populated with an auto number, right? Because it's now just a text field. So that field would be blank for that record. So so watch out for that. It's best to either maybe lock out your users during this, or just do it on a time where there's very, very few users in the system. And okay, sorry about that. Just checking the questions, make sure nobody has issues. Okay, so auto number switcheroo, that's a good tip, one of my favorites. The second one here, change user's email without sending a confirmation request. So this one's pretty sneaky. Again, this one has some caveats. It's not like a silver bullet, but basically what happens is that if you were to, if you wanted to change a user's email address, typically what happens is an email gets sent to that new email address, and they would have to confirm it. There's also an email, just a notification email sent to the old email address, but the new email address would have to go in and click a link and confirm that change before the change is actually takes place, right? Actually committed on that record, on that user record. And so what you can do instead of that, right, if you wanted to kind of get around that, and I'll give you a good real-world example in a second, but basically if you go into the user record and you edit, and you know what, it's better to illustrate if I flip over and I'll actually show it to you. I go in here. Okay, so I'm now on an edit screen for a user. And so, for example, I'm in here editing my good buddy Joe Pissarro. I can scroll down here and say, click this box, generate a new password and notify user immediately. And at the same time, I could go in here and I could edit his email address. And if I do that, and again, sorry if I'm scrolling around too fast. I don't know if the webinar is keeping up. But I can change the email address, check this little box here at the bottom, and then save it. And it's automatically going to commit that change. And now, obviously, the caveat here is that, well, it's still going to communicate to that user, and the communication is going to be a new password. And so the real-world example where, again, it's not a silver bullet, but one real-world example where I've used this a lot is in sandboxes. Because you might have a sandbox, and it's kind of a nightmare working with users if they're going to be involved in testing or something like that, and they're not familiar with sandboxes. It gets very confusing for them. If you say, okay, go to test.salesforce.com, log in with the same username you would normally use, but put this little thing at the end, and then use the password that you were using a month ago when we refreshed it. That usually doesn't go over very well. So instead, I like to just go in there. I'll update their email address to remove that little appended sandbox name at the end of it, and then come down here and check this box, and then click Save, and you're done. That way, you're just telling your users who are going to test, hey, listen, you'll get an email, and it'll have login instructions in it. It'll have a temporary password and all that, and it's just easier for them. So, again, sorry for the navigational issues here. Okay, so that's our second tip. Again, one that I like a lot. Use it used correctly, it can save you a lot of headache. So this one kind of always creeps me out. It's funny how long it took me to figure this one out on my own. But this is what I call mass email activity ghost busting. And what I mean by ghosts is that whenever you send a mass email through Salesforce, you go through and actually use the wizard, all right, from like the leads or the contacts tab, and you say, I want to send mass email. And then it sends the email, and that's great and that's cool. But then it'll add these activities saying that it did send the email, say when the email was sent and all that. So it's the activity history. In this case, you can see the little purple line means that it was on a contact. And basically the subject would just say mass email and then have a colon and then nothing. It was just empty. And so you wouldn't know what mass email it was. And for the longest time, I thought it was supposed to be the name of the mass email, because when you're going through the mass email wizard, it asks you for a name. And I thought that would show up here, but it doesn't. So it turns out, I don't know if I documented, there we go. So the solution is give your email templates a description. So it's actually the description of your email template is going to appear here if you gave it one. So whatever that template is you're going to use to mass email, give it some short and sweet description, and that'll show up here. It'll help you out a lot. That one was pretty funny. Actually, I wondered about that, but never really looked into it for years before I actually find out. Mike Gearholt, Button Click Admin, is the one who filled me in on that one. So the next tip, the ID growth formula. So a little bit of background on this is that so you have you may see one of two formats, I guess I can call them formats, of IDs for Salesforce records. So everything has a record. Your Salesforce org has a record. Your users have an ID. Your org has an ID. Your users have IDs. All your records have IDs. And so these IDs show up in either 15 characters or 18 characters. And the difference is really, it's all about case sensitivity. I don't want to get too geeky on you, because I know that we have a mix of developers and non-developers on the call, but essentially if you're working in a system that knows the difference between a capital A and a lowercase a, then you can use the 15 characters, and that would be ample to distinguish one record from another. But if you're working in a system that does not distinguish between uppercase and lowercase, then you need these extra, like in this case, I've got an example here, the E, the A, and the D at the end. That would be enough information to make this now unique, even if you were ignoring uppercase and lowercase. And so sometimes, depending on how you pull your data, if it's a report from Salesforce or if it's through a data loader of some kind, you might get one format and you might get another one. And sorry about that, I was just checking the questions. And so, so going back and forth, you may need to do that if you're, like, let's say, manipulating some data in a spreadsheet or Access or wherever it is that you're going to maybe compare IDs, right, using like some sort of formulas in a spreadsheet. Then it's going to be kind of annoying. Sometimes if you have it's obviously easy to just truncate, right, and cut off the last 3 digits, or the last 3 characters rather. But how do you go from the 15 characters to the 18 characters? And so there's actually a variety of ways to do that. You can actually check it out. I'll follow up, and I'll make sure everybody can get to my blog. I've got a couple of links in there of cool ways of doing it. But since I posted the blog, actually, there's probably the best way of doing it is a formula. So Salesforce actually gives you a formula, case safe ID. And so you can use this. You can create like a formula field, and it'll just give you, any ID, whatever ID it is. It could be the ID of a parent-child or a parent record or something like that, or the ID of the record itself. And you could create a field that would then always present to you the 18-character ID. So that's kind of the easy. That's probably the best way to do it. So, all right, on to, and by the way, we were making, let me do a check here. Yep. Good. We're making good time, so I'm going to give you guys back some time, I think, at the end of this webinar, which is always good news. So on to the secret tab trick. So this one, came to me from Scott Hemmeter of AeroPoint, so a shout out to him. Didn't create a tab for your custom object, but the tab is accessible nonetheless. That's the gist of this admin trick that you didn't know. And so let me flip over. Let's do like a live demo of this one, because a slide really is not going to do it justice. So if I come over here, I'll just scroll to the top real quick. So I'm just looking, all I did was go into my this demo org, and I'm going to go to an account. And what I've got going on here is that on the account, I'm going to scroll to the bottom. I'll do it, again, do it slowly in case there's a little bit of lag. But I'm going to scroll to the bottom and look at my related list, and oftentimes you might be in a situation where you'll have a custom object that's related to the account object or some other object, but it's not really important enough to have its own tab. It's just something that you created, and you created a related list for it and added that to your page layout. And so you can come here and I can click my new record, right? Click a new record. I can delete, I can edit, but there's really no tab for it. If I wanted to see like a list of all of just these records, traditionally I'd have to go and create a tab for it, which is not the end of the world. It's not the hardest thing to do, but it is maybe if you're running out of hitting the limits of the number of tabs you can have, for example. And so what you can do is you can actually click into one of these records, or there's a variety of ways to do this actually. But for example, if I click into the record, now here's that ID that I was talking about earlier. This is a 15-character ID. What I'm going to do is delete everything except for the first 3 characters. And the first 3 characters, that object prefix, is basically, in this case, A07, that represents this object, right? So every record in that object is going to start with those same 3 characters. And that's really all I have to do is just delete that and just leave the whatever your server is, .salesforce.com / and then those 3 characters. And if I do that, voila. So I never created, again, this is not an actual tab, but I navigated to that address. And now what's happened is I've got a view, or I can create any view that I want, but I can basically have it's like list views of any records that are in that object. And so you can see that one here attached to an account, another attached to an account, and there's even one here that's not even attached to an account. It's just kind of out there in my database. And so this is kind of a cool way to come here, and I can sort, and I can check it out, I can edit them, and all that sort of thing without the need for creating a tab. Let's go back one more time to our presentation. So that one's a really cool one, and very useful too. All right, so we got through our 5 admin tricks you didn't know pretty quickly. So I'm going to give you some bonus material, and then, like I said, we'll give you back some time in your day. So basically, this was a link that I don't think enough people know about. findsf.info, and it's a one-stop shop for finding the Salesforce-related info you need. I just read that off the slide. That's pretty much explains it all. So we're going to thank Hamnick for this one. Follow him on Twitter @Hamnick. He's got this cool, let me exit out of this so I can actually go to the link. There we go. So here's findsf.info, and basically Nick put this together because there's just so many different ways that you can find information about Salesforce, from whether it's people's blogs or YouTube, or obviously the Salesforce website. Of course, is probably the first place you look. But it's going to kind of bring together information from all of those. So, for instance, if I said I'm going to search for duplicates, and look, you've got all these different options to choose from. And so I can click like apps, for example. I'm looking for like duplicates apps. You can see that here at the top we got a solutions overview and the app exchange. You got DupeDive, a free duplicates diagnostic tool. You got a video with this handsome young man, Michael Forrest, on it. And so it's just kind of a really cool way to if I want to check out something else like formula fields, and maybe I want to like check out a blog. You've got some like cool blogs on here, that you can go check out different blog posts about formula fields. So just a few examples there, but you definitely bookmark that one. Find sf.info. That's a cool one. And so let me check again. I want to make sure we're not having technical issues. And the last, I guess, tip here is another link. I wanted to share with you here the Developer Force Workbench. It's basically, like it says here, a cloud-based alternative to the data loader, and some other tools, various other tools. I'm not going to get too far into it myself because I've actually only been using it very lightly just for different queries and things like that. But let me go first to show you where you can find this thing. If you actually go to, the probably the best way is to share the link with you later on. But if you went to developerforce.com, you could actually search for Workbench, and it would bring you to this page right here. It tells you all about it, all sorts of information about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the cloud-based version, and I'm going to log in now, and just to show you what it looks like. So I logged in, and because I'm already logged into Salesforce in my browser, it's already picking that up. It's picking up my session ID, and so I can just agree to the terms and click login. And so here's just just a quick overview I wanted to show you. You definitely should log into this thing and try it out yourself. But you can get info on your different objects. So like right here, I can like dive into the different fields that I have. If I just kind of wanted to like look around in here, see all the child relationships. So a lot of information about your metadata, right? Queries. So again, like I said, this is kind of a lot of the functions are alternatives to the data loader, and it doesn't matter. Obviously you could run this on any, like you could run it on a Mac if my Mac would start up. And so like here's an example of like the SOCL query screen, which really is just like it's just like the query function in the data loader. And you can come in here and pick and choose your field, and it'll start to build out the SOCL query for you. And you can put in different filters, and then you run it and basically save all these records like as a CSV file, or you can just display them on the screen as a list. It's really a cool way to do a lot of things. You can mass update, delete, upsert, a lot of the insert, obviously, a lot of the functions again, that the data loader has, but it's in the cloud. So definitely worth checking into, in my opinion. So just to finish off here, so what's next? We are going to be posting the video or recording of this webinar. I will also be making sure that everybody gets a copy of those links, all the links in here, including the one to the original blog, in case you wanted to go back there and read any comments and that sort of thing. Speaking of microforce.org, so here's your homework. Set microforce.org as your homepage. Okay, that might be that's a little ridiculous maybe, but you should probably bookmark it or add it to your favorites or whatever you want to call it. Follow Microforce and RingLead on Twitter. So again, I got a couple of bullet points in here where I just want you to give some love to our awesome sponsor for putting on this, or for allowing me to come and present on this content. So install unique entry and or dupe dive from the App Exchange. Those are two RingLead apps that I've singled out here just because, well, for two reasons. One is if you're interested in me and my blog, you're probably interested in these apps just because I've designed them and was a lead developer on them. So you should definitely check them out. And also, they're just the quickest and the easiest of our applications to get started with because they're our native apps, and we're going in that direction more and more every day toward native apps, making awesome Salesforce duplicate prevention and removal tools. And finally, Q&A. Rather than try to, I find that trying to take questions through the chat and me read through it and respond here on the phone is not very efficient. I'd rather have you guys go and post questions in a single place for two reasons. One is you can kind of help to answer each other's questions, right, in case one of you might know a little bit more about one of the tips that I've presented here than I do. You can respond to each other. And on top of that, for posterity's sake, right, if somebody comes and wants to like search the internet for some question that's been asked, they might be able to find it now on LinkedIn. And so please go to the RingLead user group on LinkedIn. It's easy to get there. You can just go to bit.ly/RingLead. That is, bit.ly/RingLead, all lowercase letters. And that's it. So there's your homework. There's your 5 admin tips you didn't know about, and as well as 2 bonus links. And I very much appreciate you guys coming to hang out. I hope you guys learned something. If you did not learn something, let me know. Actually, you know what? If you did not learn something, you probably have something that you could teach me. So please reach out and do that. But everybody, thanks for joining, and I will see you next time.